much. On behalf of the United Nations Development Programme, I'm delighted to join you here today. Delighted to be part of a conversation moving forward with how blockchain can help us achieve the SDGs. But I need to apologize up front. I get very excited about the SDGs. I like Blaj said, he gets up in the morning and thinks the SDGs. It's our job at UNDP to solve the SDGs. So every day I think about them and I speak a little bit too quickly when I start to talk about the SDGs. So just in case any of you get lost, I'm going to deliver my 3 key messages about our experience at UNDP in using blockchain to achieve the SDGs. And the first one, and fundamentally, is that blockchain is a fundamentally SDG technology. It matches the core principles of the SDGs, and I'll explain a little bit later. Secondly, we need to experiment with blockchain in these areas, in new areas, but we need to experiment very smartly. And the way we would like to do that at UNDP is directly respond to the concerns and challenges of people. So we don't move ahead with a blockchain solution because it sounds good or it looks good. It needs to be a direct response to what people need. Thirdly and finally, blockchain is not the solution. Blockchain on its own can't solve the SDGs. Where blockchain connects to an existing activity or effort to achieve the goals, that's where it's most effective. So, looking at why I say blockchain is fundamentally an SDG technology. A little bit of a history lesson here. Who owns the SDGs? Maybe some of you are not that familiar with the SDGs. Maybe you think boring UN people like me designed the SDGs and gave them to Vietnam. Well, actually, this was the man originally responsible, Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the UN at the time. He doesn't own the SDGs, although maybe he'd like to think so. You might recognize that man, a fellow Irish humanitarian. He likes to think he owns the SDGs too. He does a good job, but he doesn't own them. If you want to see who really owns the SDGs, look at how they were developed. So this was the largest consultation program in UN history. Over 1 million people consulted. In fact, the UN came here to Vietnam as one of the pilot countries to consult Vietnamese people about what they wanted in the goals, what kind of world they wanted to see in 2030. And secondly, the text of the SDGs says, on behalf of the people. So your president went to New York in 2016 and signed, on behalf of the people of Vietnam. Now what this means, these are the people's goals. So for the first time in history, the UN and governments actually want participation of the public in achieving the goals. It's not the responsibility just of the government anymore. You have a role. So how does this connect to blockchain? So as UNDP, there's 3 core elements of blockchain we're interested in. The fact that it's decentralized, it's distributed, and immutable. So looking at the decentralized part, now that immediately connects with us about participation, about getting other people involved. It's not centralized, it's not controlled by a government entity. That's key. You have hundreds or thousands of people involved in a blockchain who can verify information on a ledger. That's participation in action. The fact that it's distributed, that shows transparency. Another key element of the SDGs, if we're going to achieve them, we need pure transparency, and the distributed ledger gives us that. And the immutability is another core element of the SDGs, and it connects with blockchain, and that is in our fight against corruption. The motto of the SDGs is leaving no one behind, and corruption is what threatens essential services getting to people who need them the most. So we look at these 3 together, and this is what I see. I see participation, accountability, and transparency. And for us, that's goal 16. So you might not know the goals that well, but this goal is what we call the cornerstone goal. This goal enables and empowers the public to try and participate in achieving the other goals. So this is the one that allows you to participate in public life, to hold institutions to account, to push decision makers if they're not achieving enough progress, and to make sure that you're combating corruption. So straight away you can see blockchain is fundamentally an SDG technology, in particular accelerating the achievement of goal 16. Just some examples here of this blockchain and goal 16 in action. You can see in the area of transparency, Horizon State putting voting machines on the blockchain. Of course, our decision makers need to be there, need to be the ones that we actually voted for. So this is a key application of blockchain and for Goal 16. Secondly, aid tech are using blockchain to ensure aid and essential services get to refugees in Syria and Lebanon. And this goes back to leaving no one behind. Previously, aid workers were blackmailing refugees and corrupting aid getting to them. So now on the blockchain, we're able to combat that. And finally, you cannot participate in public life without an identity. And ID 2020 have created a digital identity on the blockchain, which allows people to access social services and challenge decision makers as active members of society. So there's just 3 examples that really demonstrate blockchain being fundamentally an SDG technology, especially driving Goal 16. So now, what UNDP has learned through our own direct use of blockchain. We have about 12, 13 blockchain initiatives, at least worldwide, pilots and different stages. I want to show you one, which is on land registration in India. This is a blockchain-powered land registry in the state of Haryana. So the background to this is very simple. There was huge distrust between the public and the government about the land registry system, to the point where the public did not feel comfortable buying or selling land. If they bought the land, they couldn't be sure the person who was selling it really owned it. Sometimes they didn't even know if they owned the land that they were trying to sell. So we just concluded our proof of concept in April this year, and I just want to give you one key takeaway from the success of this proof of concept. And I have to be honest, it wasn't just blockchain. That was a key element to it. It did add extra trust in the system and the success of the pilot. But what really made it was the added engagement and support of the government and of the local population. So you see what I said earlier on, blockchain itself not the solution, but where it complements other efforts, and you have positive engagement from the government and positive engagement from society, that's where you get effective and sustainable blockchain solutions. The other main point to point out, the other main takeaway from this experiment was we didn't just jump in to India and say we want to do a blockchain experiment. We had to do our research about where people were finding the biggest challenge in their public administration, in engaging with public administration. And we did that by talking to the people. You do that by looking at the data. And here's what I want to say to you now in Vietnam is that we have lots of data, lots of information from the public about the challenges that they face. And what I'm trying to do is encourage people who are interested in even making money. There is marketable opportunities here. There are business opportunities here. Look at where people are feeling the biggest challenges. And in Vietnam, UNDP run a nationwide survey called the PAPI, where we interview about 15,000 Vietnamese people every year. Since 2009, over 100,000 Vietnamese people. And of course, this is the same challenges many countries face, but these are specific to Vietnam as well. And we work with the Vietnam Fatherland Front, and we work with many ministries about addressing these challenges. But here you can see where people are concerned. There's issues around education, there's issues around land, there's issues around health. But this is not a problem. There's a lot of efforts ongoing. But this, to you, is an opportunity to see, can blockchain complement and match these efforts and help achieve the goals in these areas? We also have a justice index, which takes a look at where the most court cases are happening. And this is really important for people to avoid litigation and stay out of the court systems where it takes time and money and slows down their employment opportunities and stops them from providing or participating in public life. So again, you look at these indexes and you can see where there might be opportunities, where people are feeling challenges, and join government initiatives and propose new solutions and help us achieve the SDGs. So, just to conclude now, looking at some lessons that we've learned, as I said before, blockchain really is powering empowerment. If you are part of the blockchain movement, you are contributing to ensuring transparency and accountability in the blockchain for a variety of different kinds of data. That's really important. So keep going. Secondly, we need to experiment. We mentioned this before. You need to move into new areas, but don't do so getting excited just with blockchain. Talk to people. The platform approach is what we use. We never move ahead with a solution without talking to the people on the ground we're trying to help, without talking to the government that in the place where we are, and talking to academia, NGOs, and whoever. That's when you get your sustainable solutions, and that's when you ensure that no one is left behind. And finally, we really need to dig down into what the problems are. I'm so excited about blockchain. It gives me great excitement, but we need to be careful that we don't put blockchain forward up on a pedestal. It needs to be matched by these other great activities and these other great efforts. And with these three, and especially where we get down to the root of the problem, that's where we'll find the most effective and sustainable blockchain solutions to achieve the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.